All right, this is recording 842-842. The name of this podcast is Listen Next 842. You can find me at speakingtothecia.com. The name of my podcast is Speaking to the CIA. You can also find me on Podbean. You can also find me at my website, ChristinaStation918.com, which is the same as SpeakingToTheCIA.com. You can find me on YouTube, Christina Station 918. Okay, so I'm going to continue here. Okay, so this recording again is going to be more of my decode. I'm decoding crimes that Gene Roberts has committed all throughout history. There's going to be all kinds of different odds and ends, different pieces, all different connections in here in this recording. Okay, so in my previous recording, earlier this week when I was talking about Michael Jackson, okay, and her stalking the Jackson family, okay, I wanted to re-reference this. I've already got this in my podcast. I've already turned this into Tulsa Police Headquarters, but I also want to add in when I was decoding in Slidell and I was figuring out that she had not only been stalking me all of my life, but also the Jacksons, and I had it back to the 70s. I continued to decode and I got it all the way back into the 60s. And this is how I figured this out, by studying Michael Jackson's life and studying his parents. Okay, and so then I know, okay, so now I know this at minimum goes back into the 60s, okay? So anyway, this is something that Gene Roberts did, and it made me angry, and it made me cry, and I did not decode it. I saved it in my Minister Louis Farrakhan book, in my Martin Luther King Jr. book. Remember I told you it was a small teal book that I bought to go along with all of the bigger books, the big notebooks that I was decoding in, because I wanted like an index book of everything that I was decoding. But what I had been decoding, and now I'm 10 years in now, is so massive and there's so much, it was impossible to create a legend book or an index book. It was impossible to create that. And I ended up filling that book by decoding even more ciphers. So anyway, I said to myself, I'm going to save this, and one day, hopefully, I will be able to give this to the Jacksons. Now, what my plan was at the time was, which is still my hope, and I know it is going that way, but it's being intercepted and stolen from by Gene Roberts and her Manson occult, posing as people that they're not. And what I was told by the Nation of Islam, by Minister Louis Farrakhan, is, and this is of late, is this is your decode, Christina. These are ciphers you decoded. You decoded your own life. You figured out how Gene Roberts committed all these crimes. So it's your responsibility to get Gene Roberts turned in. We want to jump in and we want to save you, and we want to stop Gene from committing all this crime, but there's a lot of dynamic going on. As you know, you have the evidence, you turn in Gene, and then once the CIA does what they're supposed to do, then after that, then all of your decode, all of your books will go to the actual Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. That's what was advised to me. Now, in between this point of me being told that, because I thought I would be able to give everything to Minister Louis Farrakhan, find a way to get to him, give it to him, and have him work with the CIA or intelligence to get me into witness protection and my children into witness protection and any of my family that wants to go into witness protection to give us new lives where they could work together and then divide out to go through everything. Okay, this is for military, this is for you intelligence, this and the Minister Louis Farrakhan, this is for us, this is civil rights. Them being able to sit at the big table and this is how we're going to handle justice. This is what we're going to do to create justice for everyone, to hold Gene Roberts and Earl Manson, occult or KKK responsible, and this is how we can redo everything. We can rewrite the history books. We can do everything the way that we're supposed to do, the way that we've always wanted to do, based on bringing all this knowledge together. And then with our knowledge, because everything I figure out, imagine times infinity with all the intelligence in the world. It's in the amount of intelligence is insane, and getting it all together and figuring out history all the right way, the way it's supposed to be, is what I wanted. And I wanted to be a part of that by saying, hey, she stole my life. I figured out all this crime she committed. She's stalking me and my children. She stalked us all of our lives, and she committed all this crime. And all I'm asking for is a new life for me and my boys, and let me be a small part of justice so my children and my grandchildren have a safer future, and the world has a safer future, and there's no more white supremacism. But this was hijacked. So Minister Louis Farrakhan re-advised me back when I was in Oklahoma City. And then after that, Gene Jernigan Roberts started posing as the Nation of Islam, started posing as Minister Louis Farrakhan, started posing as Trump, and then kept running around claiming that I gave her some sort of permission. I never gave the person I turned in permission for anything. And that's what she still does today. She steals it. She pretends like she's me. She commits crime. She runs around lying to and manipulating people. And then she has herself worship, pretending to be people she's not, imagining that the people that she's pretending to be would want themselves to be worshipped. Jean herself wants to be worshipped. So that's the kind of ulterior world she creates for herself while stealing everything I do to turn her in. She is a horrible human being. And then she turns around and she manipulates and cons everybody, and then she gives everybody out little pieces or little snippets of what she wants to, further manipulating, conning, and lying. The same business as usual, over and over again. So I keep doing as I'm advised, and I just keep making reports to the Central Intelligence Agency. I make actual reports the way that a typical person would go and make reports. What are you supposed to do if you go make a report? You go to the police. You go online. If you can't go knock directly on the FBI's front door, if you can't go knock directly on the CIA's front door, what do? You make online reports. What do you do if you can go make reports directly at your local law enforcement? You drive your butt downtown and you go make reports. So I did all of this, and I continue to do this because what I decode is so massive and so huge, and Gene Roberts is a terrorist, and she's holding people hostage, and she's got people under threat, that until she's arrested, this is my continued way of making reports. And I make sure that law enforcement is aware. I make sure the CIA is aware. I know that I'm a Secret Service informant. I know I've had communication. So everything Gene Roberts does to try to steal from me or spread dumbass lies as some pansy excuse for her to get away with what she's been doing herself and her occult, not even counting her predecessors and whoever she wants to claim her predecessors are, and her usual lie banter. Jean needs to go to jail. Anyway, so, okay. So let me go back to this. So the 60s, okay. So this is something that Jean Jernigan Roberts and her Manson occult did. Now, on the line of this being her and her Manson occult directly from the point of when the Charles Manson occult formed. By the way, I decoded more of that. The planning of creating the Manson occult, I decoded that too just recently, and that was back to the early 60s. Now, anyway, so, or whether it be her predecessors, okay, so anyway, so this is what she did, okay, so she took Catherine Jackson, which is Michael Jackson's mom's name, and then she took, oh my gosh, I can't think of what her name is. Oh, Jacqueline Kennedy. So, Catherine Jackson and Jacqueline Kennedy, okay, Jackie Onassis. Okay, so that's how I first learned the term. Well, I had already been using the method because I already figured it out. But this is another one example of where Jean Roberts did this. So if you take their names and you write one name over the other, and you take the first name you take Catherine, and then you cross-reduce with the last name of Kennedy, and then you do the same with Jacqueline, and you do the cross-reduce of Jackson. See how it makes the X in the middle? Okay, so the cross-reducing, that is also something, that is a technique of the Ku Klux Klan, okay? So it is controlling and stitching and sewing. So if you do it proves that she was stalking both the Kennedys and the Jacksons. So if you do the cross-reduce between them, ciphers come out of that. Now, this is what I did. I wrote the diagram down in my Martin Luther King Jr. book, okay? But I didn't decode it. I just wrote the diagram down. In my brain, I decoded it, and I got so upset, I was crying, and I was like, I'm going to save this for later. Hopefully, one day, Minister Louis Farrakhan will have this, and he'll be able to sit down and go over this with the Kennedys, also the Jacksons, in person, was my hope. At the time, I was crying. I was really, really upset. It all still upsets me. So anyway, it was about a week after that, Jean Roberts came on in my brain, and she literally said to another person she was on with, where I could hear her, and she said she was stealing this from me. And then she said, I'm already decoding this. She had already stolen it, my diagram, and was decoding it and off running to kiss butt of the Kennedys and the Jacksons. And she said in my brain that she was off decoding it, and she was saying something like she was at my dad's house decoding it. She's probably pretending to be you, because at that point, let me rephrase this because people are talking through me. She's probably pretending to be me. I had already moved out of my dad's house. I was living on my own in Slidell in the apartment up the street. Okay, so that's probably why she was saying what she was saying in my brain, because she was probably pretending to be me, which means she was lying to whoever she was lying to. But she ripped it off, and who knows what she did or what's where. But that is the diagram. And I wouldn't trust anything from Jean Roberts. And if anything has been brought to you from Jean Roberts, I would look at her and tell her she is future arrested. Anyway, okay, so I want to continue on with the SurgyNet. I wasn't done in the last podcast. This continues on. So here's more decode that goes to this, okay? So inside SurgyNet, okay, SurgyNet was a Cerner product, as I told you. So inside that is Sturgis, Sergio, Valente, and then obviously my stepdad's name, Sergio, was my first stepdad. Then Serger is in this, like a sewing serger. And then Singer is in this. You're going to see all code sewing, see all code serger, see all code singer. Then Mario Sr. is in this, and that would be my first husband's dad. My first husband, his name is Mario Jr., his dad's name is Mario Sr. She's impersonating and trying to layer over people. She is impersonating or writing ciphers and encoding in Mario Sr.'s name and Sergio's name and combining it all together because she's stalking all of our families is what she's doing. Okay, and then this also connects to the Hooters attack that she did later on. So this happened when I lived in Dallas, Texas, and I always known that she's committed this attack, but I'm sure all the bikers know this too. But there was a big biker fight out or shootout at a Hooters restaurant, I think it was in Dallas, Texas. Jean Roberts committed that crime also. So also in this is Roto-Rooter. Remember I told you the bees, the drain, and all that? Okay, so Roto-Rooter is in all of that. And then bees, geez, like us standing there going, oh my gosh, look at all these bees coming out of the drain. Geez, look at all the bees. Okay, so Bee Gees, the music band Bee Gees, and then also CBGBs, and then also BGH is in that Buffalo General Hospital. Then also in this is, which I've already decoded all the H code, okay? You know what she does with the H code, and some of that is on my Pinterest, and some of it she ripped off. And people overseas know about this too, because they were helping me figure this out too. Because I'm like, look what she's doing. She's building a ladder using the letter H. Okay. And so everybody was on with me. I started decoding the beginning of it, and people came on with me, and they could see that Jean Roberts definitely was using ice to control people. And she was building a ladder in her rings of terrorism using H, which means she is micromanaging. She is icing. She is invade, trying to control all kinds of things with H and committing crime with the letter H, which is why here in the United States, Jean Roberts keeps continually claiming that she's Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthi. Okay, so anyway, so this is inside of this. So it's actually something called H-men, okay? So then also in that is high men. So H-men means high, like hello, greeting, high men, H-I. Okay, so and then high, low, and all of that. So you're going to see all decode on that. And then Hollywood men is in that. She does that too. Studio 54. So VD is in that because 54 is VD. Now, she attacked Studio 54. She attacked CBGBs. Also the Valentine's Day Massacre. Okay. So that's in this. So that is Al Capone. Okay. So she attacked Al Capone. Okay, so it looks like this is all mob, but again, she's inside the mob trying to control the mob. So it also is the Charlie Hebdo attack. The future Charlie Hebdo attack is also in this. Jean Jernigan Roberts and her Manson occult committed the Charlie Hebdo attack. And that was a terror attack that Jean Roberts and her Manson occult committed in England. Also, she pulls in this is Hollywood Wives, which is written by Jackie Collins. Okay. So also in this is, again, back earlier in my life, my high school graduation year, 1989, so at Red Mountain, it was 1989. So at Red Mountain High School on Brown and Power Road in Mesa, Arizona, what they did at Valentine's Day, and there's a picture of it in my yearbook, okay, what they did at Valentine's Day, and I've already decoded all of this, is they did like this student, I forget the names of everything in high school. They did like a student fundraiser. Okay. And so you went and spent like $1. I don't know what it was. You went and paid $1, and then you got to put your name on a construction paper heart. And then all the hearts went up on the wall outside the cafeteria, but inside the snack bar area. Okay, and note that that's underground. Okay, so, and you can see above it, just like on Laverne and Shirley. You know, on Laverne and Shirley, how their apartment is like underground, but there's like a window at the top of where you can see people's feet walking by. So it's like a reference to Abajo's people underground, okay? So the hearts, so this also links those hearts on the wall. So those are, I believe Jean Roberts is using those as death threats, is what I believe. So I don't know who in my high school class who, like, it'd be impossible to know who. I don't know if there'd even be a record of that anywhere. Anybody's names on there. I put my name on there. Mario's name is on there. But whoever's names are on there, if there are any deaths by anybody's names that are on that wall for that year, it'd probably investigate those deaths. It could lead to Jean Roberts taking their lives. It could lead to Jean Roberts may have people held hostage. They may be kidnapped. Jean Roberts has been running a hostage racket for a long time. So something to take very seriously. All of this is to be taken very seriously. So anyway, people that want to jokeify and nothing to see here, if they do that to you, then you need to tell them they're future arrested. Because they would be the perps behind it. Because that's all they ever do. They give you a song and dance and a lie and just a schmoozy and just do this lie and nothing to see. Or those would be the criminals who did it, who don't want you to pay attention that they're the criminal. So anyway, also another thing to point out in the previous podcast where I was talking about the yellow and the brown and the orange and the green, the 70s colors, the popular 70s colors. Okay, note those were fall colors. So it's a leak to Jean Roberts planning to do the World Trade Center attack in the future, which happened on September 11th, 2001 in the fall. Also, and something to point out here is, I know from before I started decoding, I knew this before I started decoding, but it always stays significant in my brain. People always say that Jesus Christ's birth isn't on December 25th, that he actually died, he actually was sacrificed in the fall. But his birthday is celebrated at Christmas. but they don't have the exact death date of Jesus Christ's death. But that's what scholars lead to, is that his death was in the fall. So that goes to this also. And it also goes to Jean Jernigan Roberts trying to couple this and trying to use the American Indian movement as some sort of cover, and then trying to play it into the American Indian movement, because Jean Jernigan Roberts likes to commit crime. Also, one theme of hers is around Christmas Eve and Christmas. Now, Wounded Knee, there's the Battle of Wounded Knee. There's Wounded Knee 1 and Wounded Knee 2. Wounded Knee 2 happened in the 70s. It was a standoff. I believe it was in South Dakota. I decoded both Wounded Knee 1 and Wounded Knee 2, and it made me angry because Wounded Knee 2, they're trying to make a stand, and they're being messed with while they're trying to make a stand. Like, the whole thing just makes me angry, which is what's happening today. It's just never ending with Jean Roberts and her Manson occult. But anyway, so, Wounded Knee 1 happened on December 26th, which is Boxing Day, okay, which is a holiday in England. So, anyway, so you can see this is Jean Jernigan Roberts doing. Her and her Manson occult committed this crime, and she's trying to create like little outlets for herself. I'm going to pass the blame here and blame you guys and then pass it to you. No. You need to go to jail, Jean. So anyway, someone also wanted to point out to me, I told you she assaulted me at 2 months old and also at 4 months old. 2 months old was with a pencil, and 4 months old was with a wooden spoon. So Boomer Sooner, they said Spooner, and then spoon goes to a whole lot more, and I'm not going to string it all together for you here. You're just have to go through my whole podcast, but you know what she did. It's in my entire podcast, speaking to the CIA.com. This is this podcast that I'm talking in right now. You have to go through earlier recordings or go see ciphers. Another thing that she did was, boy, nobody knows what to say here. Can't even believe it. Okay, remember how I told you she iced myself and my little friend Aaron, one of my childhood friends, Aaron? Okay, and then she iced him, and he flung out his switchblade, and then she startled me, and then by controlling him and controlling me, he stabbed me. Okay, but he didn't stab me. She stabbed me. She controlled him, and she controlled me. Anyway, she has a whole lie that goes with all of this. I mean, it's just one lie after the other with Jean Roberts, okay? So she pre-planned to stab me or have me stabbed in 5th grade, and then I decoded ciphers from 6th grade, from when I was in 6th grade, and then she planned to stab me in 8th grade, okay? So there's ciphers from my 5th grade year at Holy Angels, and then there's ciphers from when I was in 6th grade, and she pre-planned to stab me in 8th grade, okay? So anyway, his name was Aaron, okay? And so then here, Aaron, I'm gonna, if you're out there, you're probably going, oh my God. But, it's not, oh my God. She did the World Trade Center attack in Oklahoma City bombing. She needs to be arrested. She stalked me and my friends all of my life. She will not leave me alone, her and her Manson occult. Anyway, what Jean also did with Aaron's name was, and this killed me, this broke my freaking heart, this killed me, is she brings it back all the way to when I was 3 years old. One of my favorite songs of all time. And she stalked the ever-living heck out of this woman too. Linda Ronstadt. my mom, and I've got this in my previous recordings in this podcast, speakingacia.com. So my mom, I can remember being 3 years old. My mom had a red and blue Nova. I can remember being in the car and my mom bawling and crying. She was heartbroken. And Linda Ronstadt was on the radio. And Linda Ronstadt, this is back in the 70s, Linda Ronstadt was singing You're No Good. And I was sitting in the passenger seat. I was 3 years old, and my mom was bawling, and then I started bawling. I didn't know why my mom was crying, but she was crying, so I was crying too. And my mom had that song on full blast. Anyway, so you're going to have to see all ciphers that Gene Roberts wrote around me all of my life. And my mom, she did control my mom's relationships too, as much as she controlled mine. Like, we're just our families are just Gene Roberts' little science experiment, and she's just having the Victorian dollhouse of a lifetime, which she still does today, and people just love helping her get away with it. Anyway, so all the ciphers that Gene Roberts wrote pretending to be my dad, and how he was heartbroken and scorned, and all hell is broken loose, the Mad Marine, and his love is out, and cheating and this and that. And it's funny when I talk to my mom. My mom was like, "No, he was cheating." and I'm like, I think it's so funny because it doesn't matter. That doesn't even matter. Gene Roberts was controlling everybody's life for fun, and then putting herself in my dad's life in the future, which is present day, which he's got to have broken up with her by now, as like the freaking Viking angel of the ever afterlife who will just now take over the United States of America. And if you accuse her of anything, it's everybody else's fault, and she doesn't know what anybody else is talking about. And it's Gene Roberts and her Manson occult dang doing. It's insane, but these ciphers are hilarious. They're freaking hilarious. The ones where she's like acting like my dad, like he's all scorned and pissed off and stuff, they're freaking hilarious. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, but nevertheless, heartbreak still occurred. Okay, we live life. We get married, we break up. We have boyfriends, we have girlfriends, we get married, we date, we break up. That's regular life. I mean, okay, but it doesn't mean that Gene Roberts wasn't controlling our lives, okay? So, anyway, the pain and the agony of breakups is real. Whatever happened doesn't matter. Even her trying to get me to elaborate right now while I'm trying to continue on to the next is aggravating me, because she's Betsy Ross XO. She just wants to talk about love and marriage and baby carriage and all of that. She wants everybody to stay in the fields. Nobody's staying in the fields, Gene Roberts. You need to go to jail. So anyway, Aaron's Rent-A-Center. Gene Roberts did that. There goes Oklahoma City bombing. Because he used Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols used U-Haul, the U-Haul trailer, like rent a U-Haul, and then center goes to World Trade Center. And then also ARC, she did that too. So then again, it goes back to the beginning of time, Noah's Ark, she did that too. Now, Aaron's is an excellent company. They're excellent company, but it gives another example of just another company that Gene Roberts took control of and used ICE on, and they're going, oh my God. Anyway, something else she also did, when I decoded the ciphers of her doing the World Trade Center attack. Okay, so she iced the phrase that was on the message that was on the chalkboard in the classroom when George Bush found out that the World Trade Center was attacked, and on the chalkboard it said, "Reading makes America great again." Okay, so I decoded all of that cipher. The whole thing makes me upset and sick. And Gene Roberts today still gets away with committing terrorism and everything else and is not arrested, and it's making me insane. But something else I want to say is another thing that she also did, nails on a chalkboard. She did that too. Also, I'm moving forward now, getting our everybody listening to this recording into another mindset. Okay, going back through history again, decoding everything instead of, okay, so it's all a part of this, but going back through history. So someone said, I wonder if the constellation, and I don't remember what grade I was in. I think I was like in second grade. I think I was in second grade. No, I was in third grade is what I was in. I was in third grade. Okay, so the constellation in the sky, the all of the stars. Okay, think of like connect the dots. Okay. So people said, I wonder if the stars in the sky, the map of the stars in the sky matches Earth on the ground as far as finding more triangles. So searching for a map, and also the way she has sewn and stitched throughout history committing crime, has she used the entire constellation as a map? And in my brain, people were going, oh my gosh, please give me a map of the constellation. And instantly people are already researching it. So another thing I want to point out that she did was the island of Dr. Moreau. Okay, so when I was little, I wasn't too little. I was in high school. I read a couple of really crazy books. One of them was Animal Farm, which has everything to do with all of this. Okay, and I already decoded it all. The other one was The Most Dangerous Game. That was the name of it. That's what it was called, The Most Dangerous Game. It's also called The Island of Dr. Moreau. And it came out as a movie not too long ago in the 90s. And I think it was called The Island of Dr. Moreau when it came out, okay? So that's what's going on today. That's also what's been going on, okay? So I read this book and I'm supposed to find out that this is going on in the future, like looking back. Okay, so that means Gene Jernigan Roberts is going to go try to racket it and let me know she knows this has been going on the whole time, and she's going to go run off and try to racket it. She wants to be the savior, and I was told, no, that's not going to happen. Gene Jernigan Roberts is going to go to jail. So what this is about human hunting. Picking up humans, putting them on an island or putting them on land, and then telling them to run, and hunters going after them. It's about humans hunting humans, is what it's about. So It came out in 1924. It's a short story by Richard Connell, a bit about big game hunter Sanger Rainsford. Okay, so also in this is Gilligan's Island, Seal Code Gilligan's Island. There's a whole bunch of it. I decoded a ton of it. But also something else she did inside Gilligan's Island is Guillotine Island. Okay, and so if you cross her deuce, out of that comes IGAUOTW. And I see the word vowels, so I know there's more cipher there. Okay, then where am I at? I'm at 40 minutes. Let me end this one, and then I'm going to do another recording.